Today we are going to be discussing the southern colonies, the last colonies from the original 13 colonies. As you can see from this map, the southern colonies are going to be outlined in blue here, which is now the southeastern part of the United States today. These colonies included Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. The founders of the southern colonies came to America to seek wealth. This wealth was in the form of land ownership. In the southern colonies especially, there was very, very large areas of land that were free for taking essentially. Once again, most of this land was already cultivated by the American Indians that had lived there and died from disease. This land was extremely rich for farming, and the founders of these southern colonies knew that. Therefore, they established plantations. You've probably heard of this word plantation before. This will be a theme throughout our whole course this year, but essentially these were very, very large farms that needed a lot of people to work on them. So, they were short of workers. Essentially, the immigrants, especially from Europe, they did not want to come to the Americas to work for somebody else. They wanted their own land to farm, and they wanted to create work for themselves. They didn't want to work for a landowner that was going to force them to do certain things maybe they didn't want to do. As we know, these plantations needed a lot of workers. Therefore, the southern colonies took in what was called indentured servants. These were actually Europeans that earned a free passage to the southern colonies and worked in these plantations for 5 to 7 years. After working these 5 to 7 years underneath a plantation owner, they would be able to go out and purchase their own land. But the main thing that plantations used was slaves, and the actual first African slaves were purchased to work on plantations in 1619 in Jamestown. Now, southern colonies also used African Americans as slaves as well. Kind of a similar story to the New England colonies, but these southern colonies, they did use Native American farmland, and they didn't have as good as relations with the Native Americans as the New England colonies did. They actually would capture them or force them to tell them how to make certain crops. And it wasn't necessarily on a volunteer basis for these Native Americans. They were forced to do this, and they were treated very unfairly. This is kind of a part of history that is left out, along with the broad use of African slave use in the southern colonies early on. This plantation system became the main basis for the southern colonies' economy, the main way to make their money. They made money mostly from these three crops. It was tobacco, sugarcane, and cotton. These crops are still a big money maker in the southern economy today. These rich plantations and the slave owners continued to dominate this area for 200 years, as we will see throughout this year. This will be a major topic throughout the year, and slavery will be discussed thoroughly. Overall, the settlers of the southern colonies were Europeans that were seeking some kind of freedom. They were also seeking wealth in the form of new land, and they wanted to make a profit. They wanted to make money for themselves. The settlers also included the indentured servants that earned the free passage to the southern colonies in return for 5 to 7 years of work on a plantation, as well as these enslaved Africans that worked on the plantations. The weather in the southern colonies was pretty mild in the winter and hot and humid in the summers. This made it extremely good for farming almost year-round for the southern colonies. The geography also helped the southern colonies and the farming economy because it was extremely fertile land in all areas of the fertile colonies. Some parts were kind of the wetlands area, and there was also some forested mountains. As you will see and learn about the physical feature known as the Appalachian Mountains, starts creeping in this area, especially in the western part of these colonies. Now, the economy. Overall, the large majority of the jobs and the money making in the southern economies was farming in the form of these large plantations. But there were also other means of making money, and this was mostly in the colony of Maryland. In Maryland, they had shipping, lumbering, fishing, as well as mining. But overall, farming was the number one moneymaker. The religion in the southern colonies varied. There wasn't a set religion that settled there. It varied among the different colonists.